Okay, first and foremost, I want to thank you all for coming, and before we get much further, I know we have the media here with a camera. I see a camera here as well. Just want to make sure, since this is a neighborhood meeting and we're going to allow anyone to speak, I just want to make sure before we have cameras, if anyone would have a problem with it being filmed by the media, let me know, or specifically if you step up and you'd rather the cameras be off, let me know and we can do that. Because I don't want anyone to be intimidated, at least by having cameras here. Any questions about that? Anybody have an issue? Going. Okay. With that, I think go ahead. Thank you. My name is Jeff McKenzie. I'm with the firm of Dentons, and I have here with me Gary Malaj and Dr. Gary Conboy from Grissan. We're here. They've flown in from Scotland for this meeting, so I have a lot of respect for their time here and yours as well. So we'll try and make this an efficient meeting tonight. We're going to go through some facts here. I'm going to quickly kind of describe the request that's been made, the formal end of it. Then we'll talk about the company and the project in some detail, and then just open it up for questions. This is a neighborhood meeting. It's wide open. We have with us tonight, by the way, Jim Willett, who represents the seller. So we have any questions about any of the site or anything else, we want to make sure we cover everything. Again, this is the neighborhood meeting. It's not required, but I always think these are a helpful event to get everyone together and make sure the facts are out there so you're all looking at the same real facts about the project. Grissan is here for that purpose. They're here to describe their company. They're here to let you know that they are a responsible, professional company, and that they are going to be responsible for what they do on the site. And I think you'll see they're here for the long haul. There's been a lot of communication back and forth. I mean, we've all seen it on social media, I think signs and other things out there. I think there's a lot of speculation, and for that, to the extent there's a filing that contains just a fixed amount of information, and there are other questions that you have, that's why we're doing this tonight. And as a part of this, I think we'll expand on the description that goes in the file. If there are questions tonight that we can answer and put that in as well. I want to make sure everybody knows I think this is a great project. So the process tonight, Gary and Gary are here with me. I'll just describe what's going on. We'll have the company's description and then the project. Then when we ask questions, if you would, please take turns. I mean, just be polite. We've got one microphone set up. If you step up, say your name and your address, and we'll accommodate everybody who's got a question. I don't know how late we'll push this out of here at some point, but if a question's been asked, more than once or twice, kind of be considerate of others with their time. So, a couple things really quickly to be really clear. The actual public hearing on this, again, this is no decisions made here tonight. This is just to get information out to the neighbors. The actual public hearing is before the Board of Adjustment on Wednesday, February 21 at 5:30 at Samuels Hall at the fairgrounds. I think it's an official notice and all, but just want to make sure everybody's clear on that. At that meeting, they decide if a conditional use permit is required, and they decide if it should be approved for this project. They'll hear the facts there. The things we say and do here, we'll have to repeat again there and then in an official way, but it'll be roughly the same information we're going through tonight. The property that we're talking about is zoned I-2 industrial, and the request for the conditional use permit was made on record. It puts everything out there, and that if there are any conditions that are to be imposed on the project, that's the time to do that, and that's what the Board of Adjustment does. And as far as the procedure of what's been followed, when I filed this, I was asked to file with the Planning Commission for a Planning Commission review. However, there was not a zoning request, so technically it really goes to the Board of Adjustment, which is why there was a date set and then a oops, and they said, okay, let's put it on the Board of Adjustment's schedule. So that's what that is. I think there's been a question or two out about that the Board of Adjustment will hear this matter. And it's really just to consider the conditional use permit. One thing to mention right up front, is I think there's a lot of information flowing about anaerobic digesters. This is not like the other anaerobic digesters that have been here, that have been proposed here, that have been proposed in other locations nearby here, that have been proposed in the west end of Louisville. To be really clear, most of those digesters, and there are plenty of them throughout the United States, are at landfill operations, they're at dumps, and they generally take a broad range of materials in. And that's probably the push, that's the drive for the need for those in those locations. And that is about dealing with the trash and the waste that they have. This is a specific and very different product here. This is a renewable natural gas production facility. So, and it takes in only spent mash, as you'll hear later on tonight. So there is none of the issues that surround all those other applications, all those other discussions and everything else that has to do with the broad range of materials that are kept there and how they do their process. You'll hear, I think it's a pretty marvelous level of expertise that is used by this company, and what they do is far, far beyond anything that's done now in the United States. Yet there are plenty of digesters throughout the U.S. and certainly throughout Europe that really are not comparable in any way to this. So again, spent mash, nothing else. So I want to touch on the site plan. If you can punch there, you get the button for me. All right. So this is the site plan. It is the same that's been filed with a couple of improvements. A little laser on it?
Yes, sir.
Oh, it's good.
Top one.
Thank you. So let's see if I can. Top button. Okay. Well. Thank you. Okay, so as you can see, first and foremost, there's 245 East Rowan Boulevard out here. This is Spencer Mattingly. This is running generally north-south, so the property itself is about 60 acres. It runs the length of this, and you can see this is the property. The 11 acres in the trapezoid up here that's been sold to another party, we weren't part of that, it's already out. The one change I'll point out, the park is this property over here. The 7 lots, residential lots, are down at this section of the property. All of the other property surrounding this site is industrial property. This is, as I mentioned, I-2, and it ended up in industrial park. The entrance that was shown on the original plan was a curb cut up here at the upper end of the property. As we'll discuss later on, there's been a change to locate the entrance as close to 245 as possible. And that's going to be determined by your county engineer as to how close you want to have that. We don't want to create a traffic problem at this intersection here, but by putting it there, that stacks, that allows for stacking, keeps the trucks off. So this shows that at pretty much the maximum extent of that road. We'll determine with the county engineer what the location of that will be, but somewhere in that vicinity will be that. So in other words, the traffic comes right off of 245, goes along Spencer Mattingly a very short distance and then into the property and nowhere else. The other point in this property is this is the creek that runs along as well. And these trees are shown, they are not in the original plan that you have because again we were evaluating the property, and that's I'll say at this point a representation of the level of screening that they would add, but we may modify that even further to screen more of the residential lots from some discussions we've had here recently. So I want to make sure that you're aware of that. Again, the facilities are located in this location. There are 12 tanks, and they're located at the furthest point from the residential use, and we'll go into that at some point. As you can guess, there's probably a good 15 plus acres, maybe even 20 acres used of the 60 acres. All the remaining is used for buffer, and there's no intention at this time to have anything else in that area. So that gives you an idea. One other thing is there is a small office here. But that office is, again, I think you'll see the office is over here, and those are the parking spaces. That gives you an idea of the scale of what we're dealing with here. So I think that lays out the plan. So with that, unless there's a question on the plan, or we'll get into that in a minute, I guess, I want to make sure that we have plenty of time for questions. So I'll introduce now Dr. Gary Conboy, who will go through kind of a little bit of the history of the company and discuss the project. So, Gary.
Evening, everyone. First off, I'd like to apologise for the accent. I'm conscious of a bit harder to understand than Jeff, so if anyone doesn't understand, just raise your hand, I'll repeat. Go easy on me, I'm from Scotland. So first off, thanks for taking the time to come and meet us tonight. I understand when you look at us, you think foreign investor coming in, bringing new tech that's generally got a bad rap over the years into Bardstown, and we understand that naturally you would be curious and concerned, and we're here today to try and address some of those concerns. Everything I tell you today is based on honesty, integrity. We're a family business. Family business dates back to 1887. My shareholders, so the top of our family, are always thinking about long term. So we are born from the distilling industry back in 1887. Over the last 10 years, we've developed our proprietary anaerobic digestion technology, which is not the same as anyone else's. So these reactors that you see, the process that we have, the underlying technology is ours that we've developed ourselves over decades. We don't build for anyone else, we don't buy from anyone else, this is our tech. So when you're on the internet, you read biodigester, we are very, very different. And hopefully as we go through today and we show you some evidence for credibility in our track record, hopefully I can convince you that we're not the same as what you might have seen in the past. Just to be clear, we only process spent mash, so we have 11 operational facilities in Scotland already. All of those 11 facilities only process spent mash from distillers. We process about 4 million tonnes per year, produce about 4 million MMBTUs per year, which is enough to power circa 250,000 homes of renewable natural gas. This is not our first site. We do this every day, 365 days a year, 24/7. We have 11 facilities that already do this. The reason we're here now is the technology we've developed in Scotland is directly applicable to Kentucky. And a lot of the distillers that we represent and work with in Scotland are the same distillers that produce bourbon here as well. So what we're bringing is a ready, off-the-shelf, deployable technology that we know, and I can stand in front of you categorically and have you look in my eyes. I know it works, and I know exactly how it performs. I can tell you it won't create any noise, it won't create any smells, and I'm here because I'm able to stand on that track record. To put it in context, Grissan and its 11 facilities currently service over 60 distilleries in Scotland, which is about 80% of the available residues in the Scotch whisky sector. That's across a wide range of premium brand Scotch whiskies across the whole industry. The distilleries we don't service are the ones that are generally quite remote, either on the islands or far away. So we're well embedded, our customers are extremely brand driven, extremely risk averse, and we've built a relationship with them through an established track record, and we're standing here today because of that. So before we go into a little bit more about the process, we've got a short video that gives you some real live footage of how these plants operate. It gives you a bit of context of the assets that we've got involved. That will then generate some initial talking points, and then I'll go into a little bit more detail about this specific project. And what we'll do is that as we go through, we'll pause and I'll explain a little bit as we go through the video. But turn the light off.
Yeah, can we hit the light and see if that helps, just to make sure it's clear?
Thanks.
Thank you. Yeah.
So as an example, this is one of our existing sites, very similar sort of scale to what we have. So to give us some context, each of these are one of our anaerobic digesters. They're designed in a permanent fixed concrete structure that fully encloses all of the tanks. So as you can see, it goes all the way around the site, and that's double containment. You call it a berm in the United States. That berm is designed as a second layer of containment for these tanks. Each of the tanks is about 98% full with essentially water and spent mash, 30 quart spent mash. And we build this as an extra containment which I don't think you'll find anywhere else in the United States. We're not required by law to build these, and certainly not in the UK and not in the US. We build them to give us peace of mind. And our general ethos and how we design and build these sites is for peace of mind. So I'm going to be the guy that comes over and turns this thing on and operates it for the first 6-12 months as we develop a local team who will ultimately take over it. And I need to be able to sleep at night knowing that this is the safest, highest quality engineering project that we can do, just as an example. So to give it context, inside the HCH tanks, there's about 90% water and about 10% solid material, which is about the same consistency as spent mash. That whizzes around inside the tanks, and a set of biological microbes that are naturally existing, available in the atmosphere and the soil already. They convert the carbon in that spent mash into a mixture of methane and carbon dioxide, and then what's left behind is the nutrient that came from the corn into the spent mash, and that nutrient is then used as to make a number of soil conditioner products. So we take one material in, spent mash, and we produce 3 materials at the back end. Food grade CO2, which is used for fizzy drinks, pharmaceuticals, etc. High quality methane, which is put into pipeline quality and ejected into the gas grid, and that powers local homes and businesses. And finally, agricultural soil conditioner product, which goes back to agriculture and is used for improving farming, basically. The obligatory Highland captain, whichever one likes. So just as an example, these are some of the brands that we already represent, and we service those distilleries. A bit different from the bourbon industry, but this is an example of the Scottish distillery. So you want to pause there, Cole? So again, just to give it some context, we have 11 facilities all around Scotland. All of our sites are located beside distillers. So the Scottish whisky industry, as the bourbon industry is, it's an extremely prestigious industry, and it produces a lot of byproduct, and that byproduct has to find a home somewhere. So we were born out of the necessity to find the best environmental outcome for what to do with that spent mash. The reason the sites are distributed that way is we have the main Scotch industry up in what we call the Speyside region along the River Spey. We have the Highland distilleries in the north, there's some on the east coast, and then there's 2 big industrial distilleries on the west coast. So we're located in the neighbourhoods where these distilleries are, so that we can best efficiently use those products. So I just hold there for me, Colby. So again, thinking about sensitive neighbourhoods, so to give us some context, this here is Balvenie Castle, which is a 500-year-old historic site in Scotland and the UK. We have sites of special scientific interest from a historical point of view, so that is a very big tourist destination. Similarly here you have Glenfiddich Distillery, which is the most coveted single malt Scotch whisky brand in the world. In the back there's Balvenie Distillery, again a really high quality distillery, and then right up the back you've got Kinninby Distillery. To put it in context, our site is about 150 feet from the visitor centre. That visitor centre has millions of visitors every single year, and those visitors don't know that site's there. So again, looking at topography, so you'll see in the layout that site is deliberately hidden. So the berm that we build the tanks in, we cut and fill. So we will cut away the landfill as much as we can, build soil around it, building a natural earth berm and the concrete berm, and then we build screening around that as well. And we're very conscious that, I mean, to put it in context, that this is a great project. But I remember when we built that, a chairman said to me, the first time that smells or makes a noise or upsets a visitor, I'm going to drive a bulldozer straight through the side of it and you're all fired. And it's the truth. And I think it's natural for there to be a perception that you can't hide or can't properly engineer an anaerobic digestion plant, but you shouldn't smell it. If you smell it, then it's leaking. And if it's leaking, we're losing a product. If you can hear it, then it's not engineered properly, noise assessment. I mean, to put it in context, at the boundary of our properties, the noise is generally between 45 and 55 decibels, which is lower than a normal conversation. In terms of odour, we've covered odour already. In terms of hiding, you can see, we hide it. I don't want you to see it. It should be built into the natural environment in a way that's aesthetically pleasing. And as you've seen in a couple of our sites, we try very hard to do that. We spend a lot of money on screening, we spend a lot of money on trying to give it the right aesthetic. We design the tanks, so the cladding on the side of the tanks is, they call it RAL green. It's designed to be forest coloured, so when the trees bloom and the leaves are on them, it looks the same colour as leaves. The domes are sky coloured, so when you're standing in the ground and looking, it's the same colour as the sky. We put a lot into visual aesthetic. By the way, the reason for the drone footage is you can't see it from the road, so we have to fly it to be able to see it. Pause there. And that's another angle of the same site, just to give some context. So there's some houses over here. They're a lot closer than the houses that than the residents' properties versus this project. And again, we invested heavily in screening. We're right beside the River Fiddick, which is again a SSSI site of special scientific interest. It's one of the biggest salmon spawning rivers in the region, and we go to the lengths that we go to in terms of containment and security, and really building a bubble around these anaerobic digesters so that we can put them in positions where we're not needing to worry about the environment, the people around it. So pause there. Missed it. Doesn't matter. So that was just an example. So the way that we take in this case, we call it draft in Scotland. It's a slightly different process, but the lorry, fully covered lorry or truck, backs up, unloads the entire amount within a few seconds, and then it drives off and it's covered off. So contact time with air is a matter of seconds. The liquid-based spent mash that comes into this site comes in a fully sealed tanker, so a barrel tanker, and it's pumped off, entirely enclosed, no exposure to the atmosphere. It goes to a fully enclosed tank, where it's again sealed off from the atmosphere, and then pumped forward into our digester. So we don't store anything outside, we're not looking to create odour. That's just one of our control rooms. So again, these are high-tech, fully automated systems. So we invest very, very heavily in state-of-the-art safety systems, state-of-the-art control systems. These are not the agricultural type digesters that you normally see. We're an R&D facility that's looking for high efficiency, high production quality, state-of-the-art output. Let's pause there. So a lot of people have raised things about CNG and the use. So we use a small amount of our fuel that we produce to power the vehicles that come in and out of our site. So this is an example of a CNG truck that runs on entirely renewable fuel. A lot of people think that's new. It's not. CNG-based trucks have been around for decades. I think the first one dates back to late 50s. In the US, there's about 175,000 CNG trucks already in operation. In Kentucky, you have several CNG fueling stations already. There's a couple in Louisville. The only difference being that those trucks are running on fossil gas rather than renewable gas. So rather than digging a hole in the ground and pulling methane out of the ground, this is renewable gas that we've produced a couple of days before. The technology is not anything fancy. It's a spark ignition engine. It's the same technology as you would get with a gasoline engine. All we're doing is using compressed gas rather than liquid gas. In terms of fueling, the system is foolproof. So when the driver hooks up, it won't dispense fuel until it's absolutely clicked on, and it knows it's got feedback to say it's connected. There's a fully compliant earth. There's not any scenario where someone can hurt themselves. That is intrinsically safe. There we go. So pause there. Right in. Perfect. So people often ask, well, what comes back out the other end? So we've touched on carbon dioxide, we've touched on methane. We produce a soil conditioner, and that soil conditioner, the way to view it is everything that's come out of the ground in the corn kernel that's went to a distillery. The distillery takes a little bit of carbon out, we take the rest of the carbon out, and everything else, all that nutrient that's come out of the soil, which the soil needs to be able to grow the next generation of corn, goes back onto the field. So what you've got then is closing the loop on regenerative agriculture. So as we look forward in 50, 100, 250 years, what you want is the same nutrients going around in the same natural cycle. And it's all about trying to close that loop. And if you're a distiller and you're thinking in 100, 200, 300 year cycles, you need to be able to think, how can I make sure that the land I rely upon to be able to support my business is going to be in the same good quality land 100 years from now as it is today. And that's about making sure that the land gets what it needs at the right time. And this product is as good as it gets. And with decades of trials and experiments and research in the UK to prove this is the best thing for the soil. Again, another thing we do in the UK, we go way beyond the requirements. Our application techniques are designed to get maximum benefit out of it. So so in our Scotland site, we have a state-of-the-art research facility. It's the most advanced anaerobic digestion lab in the world, and we're very proud of what we do. I have a team of 25 people. I'm not the only doctor. There's a lot of them that are a lot more capable than I am, and we invest heavily in making sure that what we do, we make the top quality output possible. That's not really relevant for you, but it's a technology we developed in the UK, and it's state-of-the-art transport gas. So hopefully that gives some context on what we do. And obviously it's natural, I can stand up here and tell you anything, but it's easier to show you and like see it. So moving on specifically to this project. That works. Yes, perfect. So moving on specifically to this project, starting out, it is very much the same technology as what we have in Scotland. So aside from some slight differences in how, you guys have slightly different pipe sizes, rather you use imperial, we use metric, but in all accounts and purposes it's the same tech. The digester and the underlying microbiology is the same tech. The gas cleanup and making it piping quality is the same tech. So this is not R&D. We do this. We do it every day, 365 days a year on multiple sites. So starting at the front end, pointer works perfect. So trucks will come in off the highway, as Jeff mentioned. The location of that entrance, we're really not too fussed about. We'll put it wherever the county wants us to put it. If it's here or here or here or here, wherever it's most effective and the right place to put it. So the trucks will swing in off the highway into a dedicated new road. A dedicated new road has truck parking areas to avoid any congestion, so the trucks can swing straight off Spencer Mattingly Lane as soon as they turn into and straight onto their site. Trucks come in up to feedstock loading area where you have 6 loading bays, and again these are designed for efficiency, so these trucks will offload in 10 minutes, fully contained, fully sealed, no leaks, no open pipes, nothing. They turn up at the site, they're pumped off the site, straight into the feedstock reception tanks, where we have 2. Those feedstock reception tanks provide the ability to constantly offload regardless of how often these tankers turn up. I should say, these truck vehicles, we would have a single haulier. We'll either buy the vehicles ourselves or we'll contract a single party, and these same vehicles will go back and forward from the distilleries to the site constantly. So this is not going to be a case where we've got 50 trucks parked up Spencer Mattingly Highway. That's not going to happen. These vehicles are constantly moving 24/7. Once they've offloaded into the feedstock reception tanks, it then pumps forward into one of the 12 anaerobic digesters. Off the top of those anaerobic digesters, they have a gas membrane put, and that provides very short-term retention for gas as we take it forward to forward processing. To put it in context, I think it's really important to say, spent mash is at 90% water. So if you had to look at it, it's thinner than your average soup. Roughly, if you have to put it in context, it's about oatmeal with 3/4 water added to it. So it's really thin oatmeal. It's a food grade product. You could eat it, it wouldn't do any harm. It doesn't taste very good, but it is edible. All the materials that go into our plant are edible. Everything comes back out the end of the plant. It's also not containing any risk to human health. Our only hazardous material is the gas that we produce. We met with the DMT in the fire department today. We went through extensive details about how all the processes we have and how it works, and they said the same. Their only concern is the gas that we have. What I should say, the gas that we store in these gas holders, to put it in context, it's about the same pressure as a toy balloon. It's 5 millibar or 0.07 psi. Much lower pressure than your car tyre. The gas pipe in most people's homes is about 4 times the same pressure. So this is extremely low pressure gas. It moves just through natural convection of the fact that as that hood builds and pressure builds, it slowly pushes itself through into the upgrading process. Once the gas comes off the top of the digester, it goes through a cleanup process, which we call upgrading, where we strip out the carbon dioxide and keep that as a separate product that's used for fizzy drinks. And then we have pipeline quality RNG. That pipeline quality RNG will be conveyed back through a connection point with LG&E, back down to the main gas pipeline that's here, all within the property. So we're injecting at the exact same pressure that that pipeline that already exists there operates at. On the back end, the soil conditioner product that we produce, there's two ends of it. So there's a solid product, which is kind of like a mulch, that comes out here. It drops straight into a trailer in a fully enclosed shelter, and as soon as the trailer's full, the trailer's straight off site, straight to farm. The liquid product is stored short term in some of the vitagrow tanks, and that comes from there straight out to farm again and used for beneficial agricultural use. We don't have sewer connection, so we don't discharge anything sewer, so we're not putting any additional stress on local municipality. We don't have any runoff issues because everything's fully contained in duct-contained tanks with an external concrete berm. We don't consume any water, so other than the office and the restroom in the office, we don't consume any water, so we're not placing additional burden on utilities for the local community. We don't store any feedstock outside, we don't store anything outside, so it's in sealed tanks. And again, it goes back to the point, if you smell an anaerobic digestion plant, the person that's operating is not operating properly. If you can smell it, you're losing material, and if you're losing material, you're going to go out of business. We invest very, very heavily in state-of-the-art technology to make sure that every single drop of gas we make, we use for beneficial use. We touched on traffic and the trucks, so people think, 150 trucks, that's a lot, that's the absolute maximum in and out, and to put that in context, that's about 1 every 10 minutes. If you were to stand on the highway there and look, that's not a lot, you basically wouldn't even notice it. On Spencer Mattingly, because they're in and straight into the side, again, you wouldn't really notice it. Traffic management is more important than the number of trucks. I should say as well, the vehicles that we'll be putting onto this, so most of the spent mash is already moving around the county, so this is not new production volume. Spent mash is already driving around, and I'm sure you've seen a lot of vehicles that move that are not particularly good quality. Some of them shouldn't be on the road. We're going to have a brand new state-of-the-art fleet running on renewable fuel. RNG power trucks, by the way, are about 40 decibels quieter than a gasoline truck. 99% lower particulates, which is great for air quality and public health. No NOx emissions, which again is a big emissions concern for local air quality. So it's a very positive step between moving a problem into being a solution. So parking, so people worry about parking, we have on site enough parking for all of the employees. This site should create about 30 jobs across the various shifts and support functions. We have parking for everyone. We don't have loads of visitors, it's not a site where we are going to have tourists coming in, so again, the actual footprint on the road is very, very minimal. Distance to houses, which is a natural concern, so the 7 residential properties down here, I should say just on this plan, the white area that goes around the creek is already screened, so that's already planted trees. The green trees that we're proposing to put in here are new trees. There's several hundred trees in there that we're putting in, and we'll put in evergreen trees to provide permanent screening. Along the edge of the concrete berm, we will build an earth berm with the soil we displace, and we'll plant trees on top of that, and that will provide not only the screening from the trees, but the additional height on top of that, so the trees are sitting higher. The nearest house to the digester is about 750 feet, and the average is about 1,000 feet away. Thickly forested, dense area. Big elevation differences between two of them. The ballpark is about 600 feet away. Again, thickly forested property and a natural buffer. I've talked about the additional trees. We're committed, and just to say we understand that saying it is one thing, we're committed and we're happy to put in an irrevocable conservation easement. So we're willing to, or we're not willing to, we wish to permanently make about 20 acres of this plot into natural trails forest. So all of this area that you can see here, we're happy to make it so that we can't ever build on it. And the reason we bought a 70-acre plot is we want to be able to provide sufficient buffer and screening so that we're being a good custodian and a good neighbour. Again, to go back to at the start, we're a family business. So the chair of the family, both the top people in the family, are personally involved in this project. And the one thing we keep saying is be a good neighbour, do the right thing, make sure it's properly hidden, make sure you can't smell, make sure the noise is not a problem, make sure you screen properly. We are not the typical kind of 5-year investor type of business. We are a 100-year plus business. We're trying to build a relationship with the local community. I'm here. I found out on Friday that this was happening, and I jumped on a plane on Monday morning to come and see you. not because I needed to, but because I want to. I want to stand in front of you and allow you to look at me in the eye and ask me point blank how these things are going to work. And I hope that today is a good expression of the honesty and integrity that we have as a business, and hopefully you will see that we're not the same as many others. We want to do the right thing for the long term, and we understand all the concerns, and we want to work through them and want to hear them with you. Just moving on to other things, so flare is something that's obviously mentioned quite a lot, and you've probably got visions of a giant 50-foot tall flame. We build a fully enclosed flare, so the flare is essentially a tube with some insulation. It's 17 foot tall, and it has no visible flame. So when it burns, you will not see a flame at all. It's entirely combustible within that tube, and there's no stack emissions out the top other than pure clean CO2. Again, we're not legally required to do that. That's something that we have always done from day one, went far beyond the standard. And again, it's good business. If you want to be around for the long term, the worst thing to do is annoy your neighbours. Noise. So again, I touched on it earlier. 60 decibels is about the maximum that we have at the edge of the process plant. We then have, well, 600 feet or 1,000 feet away, you won't hear it. 60 decibels is less than the sound that you're hearing from me through this microphone just now. Odour. Well, I've said that 100 times. It's fully sealed. If you can smell it, then we're not running a business properly, and we shouldn't be in business. Dust, there's no dust, so we have no solid storage of material anywhere, so no dust is not an issue, we will not create dust. Public safety, so naturally people Google anaerobic digestion and worry about public safety. Talking about public safety, we have 10 years of operation, we've never had an explosion, we never will. You've probably read about the 2020 Oxford anaerobic digestion explosion, Severn Trent Green Power. I know the site well actually, in the UK, that was hit by a lightning strike and exploded. The problem with that, and I'll be honest about it, is badly engineered. That site didn't have lightning protection. So our site, as this site will have lightning rods that sit about a foot higher than the top of the tallest dome. They're relatively skinny. You see them on top of high-rise buildings and skyscrapers here. That lightning protection will absorb any lightning strike and take it straight to ground. We earth all of our tanks, or state-of-the-art earthing. All of our panels are explosion-rated electrical panels. Again, we engineer these things far beyond the typical standards. We look at the list of standards and we say, well, where can we go beyond that? We take the highest rated lightning protection system that's physically available in the market, which we don't need to do, but we want to do. And it goes back to that point, we want to be here for 100 years. We want to build it once and operate it well. So I touched on earlier, we met with the county EMT and the fire team today. So that was the chief, deputy chief and the full team. And naturally, first day of concerns, we went through, we talked in great detail, explained all the detailed process and safety systems we have in place, and they were fully satisfied. And I'd encourage you to talk to them. These are the guys that deal with these with potential risk scenarios every day of the year. We've had the same to all of our sites. We have a great relationship with the local emergency services. We've never needed them, but we like to make sure that we know that they're there, and more importantly, they know we're there. That's probably the most important thing. In terms of the given, it's obvious we will always comply with all the laws, rules and regulations applicable to the facility, but we will stress we will go beyond it. We always do and we always will. We want to be a good neighbour. So I think we'll just proceed with if the clicker would work. I think we should fire it coldly. So yeah, just again, who we are, just to clarify. Oh, we talked about the transport, so we've done that to death. If there's any concerns on that particularly, we can get into detail on that. Jump ahead, Kobe. Here we are. So again, just to recap, no X-ray storage. All the lighting will be directed into the site. Again, we don't want to be lighting up the neighbourhood because A, it costs us money and power, and B, it annoys our neighbours. So everything's pointed towards the facility, as we already do with all of our sites. No runoff. Runoff's not a concern. These tanks are state-of-the-art. They're the highest quality steel that you can get. They're actually lined steel. We then have a concrete berm and then an earth berm. So there will be no concerns at all with runoff. No sewer discharge, so we don't want to discharge in the sewer other than the offices and restrooms. We covered parking, we covered the conservation buffer area, And the soil conditioner is a benefit to local agriculture. So we've already made established connections with a lot of the local growers. A lot of local growers have long-lasting and important relationships with the distillers as well. And the distillers ultimately want their slops, for want of a better word, to produce renewable natural gas, which helps reduce the burden on energy infrastructure, and then they want the material that comes out at the end of the soil conditioner to fertilise the next generation of crop. And that then becomes a full circular economy. It's all about moving towards that regenerative agriculture, sustainable long-term circular economy. So again, I've done this, I do this all the time. I run through the presentation without actually putting the slides up. But just to recap, these are brand new trucks. Trucks that we manage. There's not going to be 50 hauliers. This is one haulier. We either have the trucks owned by ourselves or we have a single contractor to have. Brand new fleet, state-of-the-art engines, state-of-the-art trailers. Everything's sealed, everything's covered. There won't be spent mash dripping out the back, as there currently is as it runs down the road. And keep in mind that we don't want that. That's ultimately our fuel source. If it's dripping out the road, then we're losing it. And if we're losing it, then we're not making gas. Not making gas, we're not making money. Workflow. So these same trucks will go back and forward 24 hours a day, constantly. It's not going to be Spencer Mattingly highway traffic jam from these trucks. These are the same vehicles that will just constantly move throughout the day, 24/7. And genuine commitment from the company to switch those trucks as soon as we possibly can onto RNG. So I talked about the conservation easement. So we're happy to commit roughly 20 acres of that land specifically to screening. I should say that's a big investment. This is I2 zone land, very expensive. The reason we bought a 70-acre field and the reason we've deliberately gone for a larger field is because we want to provide buffer and screening. We could easily buy a 20-acre field and stick it in the middle of a patch of land that we don't want to, but we're trying to do the right thing for long term. Create nature trails. Again, this should be something that we promote to the kids and educate the kids in school about and teach them about how we can do things a little bit differently and try and move towards a world where we're a little bit more sensible about what we do with our products and processes, to be able to take a little bit less of a burden on Mother Nature. And that also serves as a buffer. So we talk about things like noise, odour, etc., etc. The further away you are, the less concerned you'll be. So it's a double benefit that we're willing to commit to. So just to recap very quickly, apologies for turning the mic round. So the existing screening that's in place is the tree line. You've got the creek here and the Tullamore neighbourhood down here. We're going to extend that. So we will fill in, roughly speaking, all of that area with trees. So that's several hundred trees, massive investment. It's the right thing to do. I think the world needs more trees. I say that as a tree hugger. Maybe one of the few in the room, but I am. And if we're going to really promote sustainable green energy, and whether it's about decarbonisation or otherwise, it's the right thing to do. We want to be building the right aesthetic and the right overall. It wouldn't be very sustainable if we were going to chop down 100 trees and build a gas plant. We're trying to do the right thing for the local environment and for the local community. I say we're happy to commit to it. We will make that an irrevocable conservation easement. So this is not me just telling you today that we'll do it. We will make it binding by law that we can't strip that out. And we're happy to do that and make a commitment to do that if we can work through this together. So just to finish up, I'd say this is not me standing here and telling you this is how it's going to be. This is the start of a process that we'd like to engage with together. This is something that we're happy to have more of these discussions and refine our plans alongside some of the concerns you've got and try and work through this to see can we work together and ultimately come up with a solution that meets with our partner in the distilling industry's needs, that meets with our needs in terms of our infrastructure requirements, and meets with your needs as a community. We're here for the long haul. We want to do the right thing.
Now, I'll make one or two points here that you've heard from the guy. Thanks for the lights. You've heard from the people who know and the people who do this every day. I do want to point out one thing that has come out of some discussions that I found kind of surprising. When when you look at the tanks, I think one of the suppositions is, well, you know, what's in these tanks, these giant tanks? Well, the tanks are full of spent mash. So the vast majority, 90% or so of a tank, 90% of the tank is this wet, you know, it's basically oatmeal and water. For those who haven't been, you know, involved in the industry and haven't seen that, it's, you know, or haven't been behind a truck heading out to New Haven or back or something and had that slosh around. These are tanks full of that water. So that's what they're full of. When you're driving past a tank, it's not a tank full of methane, it's a tank full of dirty water that is being transmitted, transformed into something that will be energy that pops up again in your homes, in your businesses. So that to me is critical when you think about the project. Again, it's an extremely sealed system in every direction, including the concrete wall all the way around. So if the tank fails, everything's caught right there on site. No discharge, no connection, other than the toilet flushing in the office. There's no other connection to sewer, or any other runoff, or anything else leaving the premises. The flare, I think Gary mentioned the flare. You should understand that flare that's a mark of a failure. I mean, that's if LG&E had a major problem of some kind, and that is less than 1% of their burn, or less than 1% of the time they would ever need that they were ever going to release and use that. And that flare is a tube inside a tube, so it's not visible, not anything that anybody would even know about, but we want to be in full disclosure here, and that's what has been talked about here. The fire and EMT meeting today, they were impressed. We asked you to go say hello to them and ask if they feel comfortable with what we're talking about today. The easements, I'm a lawyer, okay, so when they said absolutely, I said, really, absolutely? And that's not just binding elements or we kind of promise or anything else. We're going to put that in writing as part of the project. So all of the land, that 19 1/3 acres of land there is going to be set aside in those easements. So they can never be used beyond the use of those as for trees and preservation of that property. I have had at least one question about can we put some nature trails coming off the park. I think that's something we can work on for sure. I think we'll have fenced-in perimeters at our side of that, and then an additional fenced-in perimeter inside that before you even get to the wall around the facilities. So it's a very, very, very secure, very sealed system. So, I do this a lot. I will tell you, as far as an industrial use, this is probably the least intrusive use you could possibly have. This is I-2 property and probably a I-1 or light industrial use based upon what you've heard here tonight and what the description of the project is in the regulations. So again, if you're looking at that property, the distance from the houses is, the closest one's about 750 feet or so, and the next closest is about 1,000 feet, a little more than that. So we're talking about more than 2 football fields. These guys don't know what that length is, but we do. So, American football. And then you've got 580 or so feet from the fence line of the park to where the facilities begin. So again, you have already those buffers in place, and there, as you heard, we'll be enhancing that. The line of trees you saw there, it's about a half a mile of trees that they're putting in place. So that's it. That's the best description we can put out there. I know there are going to be questions. And again, if you can, just take your time. The microphone's up here. I'll come up and turn it on. Or you can do that because you're much more effective at figuring out how these work. Feel free to step up and just say your name. And if you've got any questions, you've got the team here. You've got Gary and Gary. If you're really an aficionado of the accent, you'll note that Gary with 2 R's is from Birmingham in England, and Gary with on R's a good Scot like me. So, yes.
Hi, Don Thrasher. I have a question. Do you or any of the officers or directors of your company live within 1,000 feet of any of your 11 facilities in Scotland?
I don't, but I did at one point before I moved to different facilities. I don't know about some of the other officers. I need to check. They're close enough. I don't know for sure. I need to check.
Oh. So there's just 11 in Scotland, nowhere else?
11 in Scotland.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm, my name is Martha Ness. What I want to know is, you're going to produce methane gas. How are you piping it? Where are you piping it? I live on the other side, not on Tullamore, and you're talking about how you're going to buffer Tullamore. You're not talking about how you're going to buffer the Oak Ridge development, and you're not telling us where the pipes are going, because that's where the problem comes in. And the problem also comes in if the carbon dioxide leaks, as you said, everything's going to smell within 5 miles. And you can't promise that you are never going to have a leak. And who's going to buy the methane?
So we'll go through that one by one. And I'll take this first question. Can you bring the plan back up from Bill? So starting with the pipeline, and it's a good question, by the way. I appreciate you taking the time to ask the question. I'll back this out. No, the other. No, yeah. So starting out, pipeline. So the existing gas pipeline runs along the highway. So it runs along this side of the highway, under that culvert, and then off up here. We're going to be conveying and connecting at this pipe down here. So that will be conveyed inside this property, underground, fully buried, to the same standard specification that you have for existing gas pipelines. So this is a utility-grade pipeline that's conveying the same gas that you currently have at the same pressure in the same network. And it'll run from here, basically just on this side of our road, all the way down. You mentioned about CO2, carbon dioxide and smell. I'd just like to clarify that you wouldn't smell CO2 within 5 miles. CO2 is an odorless gas, as methane is an odorless gas. People do smell natural gas when you have a leak in the pipe or you turn your cooker on. That's odorant you're smelling. So natural gas has an odorant called 2-ethyl hexyl mercaptan that's added in tiny quantities, and that's a really smelly sulfurous compound that's added to the gas to make it smell. That smell, that odorant is only added at the point of connection. So we'll be adding it down here in tiny quantities. So if we had a leak at the plant, you wouldn't smell it. Methane and CO2 don't have an odor.
But it's a greenhouse gas.
Well, it is, yes. We don't want to lose it. It's a fair point, it is a greenhouse gas. Sorry, you had another question? You asked 3 questions, didn't you?
What do you buy?
Who buys it?
Who buys it? Oh, good question. So once it has the gas pipeline, it'll be taken off by LG&E, Louisville Gas and Electric, and that then gets transported to a range of buyers. So we sell it across the wide distribution network. I mean, you could buy it yourself if you wanted to. I suspect you probably don't, but you could. It will ultimately be burned in thousands of homes. That amount of gas that we put into that pipeline will be somewhere between 50 and 100,000 homes worth of gas. So all the local businesses and homes around the site will ultimately physically burn those molecules. But when it's in the network, it uses a system called mass balancing. So a certain customer will purchase our gas, whether you burn it or not. It's an accounting-based mechanism. Okay.
And the other question was, what are you doing to buffer the people that are on the other side?
On this side, sorry.
On the other side, you've got another, from my development, I go on to Spencer Mattingly, right by the railroad track. What are you doing to buffer my development from all of this?
You're past the park, one of the 4 houses past the park there?
No, no, no.
As subdivision.
If I'm on Spencer Mattingly, and I'm almost to Woodlawn Road,
Right.
which is the other side,
You're on the right.
okay, there is a street called Oak Ledge, and that goes into another big development,
Right.
which I don't see anything that protects us or protects us at all.
Well, I guess, and if I can, when you're talking about that, one reason it's not on here is the distance that it is away from the site. It's not adjacent to this property.
Oh, I know,
Right.
I'm not technically in the butter.
Right.
I got it.
And so I guess the quickest answer to the question is you're a very great, I'll determine it for you and I can get your name and get back to you on the exact distance to your house, but we're talking about you're on the other side of the park from this use. You know, it's a substantial distance. So I think you're well buffered just on that basis by distance alone.
I'm right behind Lee Brick.
At the corner of,
Where Lee Brick
Rosewood.
is, on that street.
It's in the Rosewood area.
yeah, I understand. So that's on this map? Yeah,
It's up here.
up until the front, this way. Okay. I know where the is on the map. Go ahead. It's a,
No, I was gonna
yeah,
show you on
or
here.
wood. I mean, before wood.
Here's your site.
Yep.
You're talking about the Oak Ridge neighborhood here.
Ah.
There's already a lot of industrial facilities.
I was gonna say that's,
Absolutely. Well, what I should say, we are. So it might not be on the drawing very clearly, but all the way along here, we're going to build up an earth berm and plant a tree line as well. So what I should say, the elevations here fall off, so the height at this part of the site is significantly higher than the height of this part of the site. So if you imagine this side of the berm, the concrete structure, that becomes the base level. It's about 10 feet higher than the creek. That then becomes the level for the whole of the concrete berm. So on here, you can't see it from an elevation point of view, but these trucks are sitting, if you imagine, that's the tanks, these trucks are sitting up here, and the tanks are already sunk down. So you have natural screening from the elevation difference, and then we're going to build up an earth berm along the side of it, and plant tree line along there. You're actually better screened, really, than anyone else. Hopefully that helps give us some context. I should say what we will do as we go along, if we can get to the point where we're being really constructive on this, we'll generate some artist renders to give it some context about how this would look from the local housing developments. So we'll show you elevations, so from looking from each of these residential properties, what you would physically see, and hopefully that will help give us some context. Just keep in mind this is very early stage, so we're trying to assess how to do this and how to back this project into that plot in a sensible way. As we get a little bit further along the line, we'll produce more materials, and this is the first of what we hope to be many discussions with the local community to make sure we do the right thing by everyone in the room.
My name is Linda Elsie, and you gentlemen did sell it pretty good, but I'm just curious, what kind of guarantee you're going to have by staying in this company? Are you going to promise us all of this, and then a couple of years later, you sell out and other people will not hold it up to what
Very
you
good
promised?
question.
We've had Lux Road come in and promised us that they would only put in 8, I think, brick houses. Rest of it would be greenery. Guess what? They sold the company. Guess what? They didn't hold to their word. So how are you all going to promise, if it gets passed through, that it's guaranteed that you're going to hold up to everything you said here tonight?
Very good question, and I appreciate it. So just to be clear, on the easements, that will be legally binding. We cannot revoke that. So even if someone else bought the company, they cannot back out of it. So that will be permanent, irrevocable, natural conservation land that we cannot ever, no one else ever can back out of. And I'm talking on behalf of the lawyer here, but he's been told, make it so that we can't get out of it. And that's not just for us, that's for everyone.
I just don't trust you. I don't trust attorneys
that's
either.
okay.
I don't trust attorneys either. It makes you feel better.
My mother has problems too, but that's.
I can't blame you.
But I mean, that's something we can take, so we're happy to go through the process with the county and the judge, and there will
But it's
be.
got to be, before, like I said, you sold it really good, but we still have our concerns.
Mhm.
The number one is guaranteed, and by the way, the one that you showed a 500-year-old castle. I didn't see any residential homes around here. You was bragging on,
Just to be clear, there is a home within about 100, what have we looked at, 250 feet, is the nearest home. But by name itself has 5 residences on it that are 5-star accommodation, B&B, we don't own, and they're
that's
within it.
B&B, that's not someone who
People
lives
live in
there
there.
24/7.
No, these B&Bs are managed and owned by people who live there, so the people that are renting.
24/7.
Yeah. And our
And
largest site,
300.
yeah, 365 days a year. Our largest site in Ayrshire, which is the one I showed you first, there's a house within 200 feet of it.
And would these be the employees of the company that
No,
get to stay
no,
there?
no, not at all. Our second largest site in the north of Scotland, in a place called Port Gordon, has a resident 60 feet from the site. And I don't even know the resident's name. They've never been to see it.
I know you
Yeah.
bragged about the Welcome Center. Well, people come in the Welcome Center and they walk right back out. They don't have to deal with this 24/7.
I understand.
So,
So just to clarify on the point about us selling it, so our business, our family business is entirely family owned and has been for over 100 years. So my parent company, the Building Grant & Sons, they are a family business. They have never sold out to anyone else. And if I even suggest selling this to my chairman, I'd be hungry on a quarter. They don't need the money. It's about the long-term investment in the family business and growing for the next generation. The reason we don't sell this tech, so we could, I could go and build these for every distiller and say, there you go, and I'll pocket $5 million and I'll walk away into sunshine. But we're trying to build our own business for the long term. And our entire business is design, build, finance, own and operate. We want full end-to-end controllership.
so your finance is really good? You're not gone in the
No,
red?
no, not at all.
No red?
No, this
No
is
red in
entirely self-funded. We're not borrowing from banks, this is funded from our own equity.
Okay.
Again, we're a family business. And
Well, yeah, I know how, some family businesses, some sort of
I appreciate
take under
that.
the board.
100-year-old family business, though, you don't get many of them. That's a special breed.
So, special breed? Okay.
I mean, well, the few people in the room have met our shareholders and they'll testify they are.
Now,
They're
all those
different.
trucks, when you say they're gonna pull in, dump out, are they going into a enclosed building and dump? Is that the dump truck gonna come down and just boom, and then pull out?
So the overwhelming majority will be pumped. So it's never
The
done.
overwhelming
I think
majority,
it was
but,
86% will be pumped entirely. 14% will come in as moist grains. And that's a bunker, which is like a big hole in the floor, that has a cover on it. Cover opens, they dump in about 10 seconds, and the cover goes back over it.
yeah. But you know how dump trucks are, they make a lot of noise.
No, they don't. No, the timber trailers are very, very quiet. So yes, dump trucks used for dumps are very noisy.
But your trucks, you say are coming in and dumping,
So it's a tipper. So the trailer will raise on a hydraulic ram with back door open. It takes about 10 seconds for the ram to get up. All of it's in. The bunker will cover itself, and then the trailer reduces right back down. It was actually, you've seen it in the video, and I can bring it back up if you want to see
no,
it.
I've seen it, that's why I was questioning about that too.
So yes, 10 seconds of exposure, maybe 15 by the time the cover goes off.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for your questions. Appreciate it.
My name's Adrian Guerrero, I live at Blue Mountain Springs. My question is concerning why you picked this particular place, a site. Why did you not pick a site out in the country where it wouldn't harm but a few people, or it wouldn't affect but a few people, instead of a whole city?
Good question.
So that's
Good question. So a lot of people don't appreciate to develop a project like this, you need very good access to several things. So first thing, you need feedstock. So we need to be near the distillers, and as you guys will know, Bardstown is bourbon capital of the world, and probably always will be. So we want to be near the distilleries, because otherwise all we're going to do is generate more truck miles. You're going to have trucks carting up and down the country, and we're moving a load of water about. That is both economic, not very sensible, and it's not very good for the environment or for the people. So access to feedstock. The second thing we need is we produce gas, and we talk about flaring. So the number one reason why we end up flaring 80% of the 1% of the gas that we make for flaring is because there's a problem in the grid. So there's a lack of demand, or there's a breakdown in the pipeline on the grid side. So LG&E close a valve because someone turns the wrong valve, as an example. Those are the most likely reasons why we will end up using that flare. So we try to get ourselves access to the biggest gas pipe possible, so that we've got a constant, continuous offtake. We want to go to all this effort, and it's fairly complex, I should say. It's a complex enough process to make this gas. It'd be an absolute travesty to put up a flare. So what we're trying to do is get access to that pipe, and as you may not know, but it's well known fact, there is not a lot of huge, well-capacity designed, capable pipes that have the right demand profile 365 days a year. So demand for gas in the winter is much higher in the summer. We need to be able to produce this 365 days a year. We need access to the big pipe to be able to do that. The third point is really important, transport links. So the reason we picked this site is it's straight off the highway, and that's about trying to minimise the transport impact on the local roads. And then the final part is utilities. So we need power to run our site, and that power needs a decent connection to local utility. There's plenty of power in the region. And as a final point, it then needs to be zoned I2. And there's not a huge amount of zoned I2 land in the county, particularly because we've committed to buying such a large site to have a proper screening. It's very hard to come by a 70-acre I2 zone site that has access to a gas pipe, access to electric, and the right feedstock. This site is, by an absolute landslide, the best fit for all of those, and what we're desperately trying to do, and we hope you can see, is we're trying to make it so that we can put it in this location, which, by the way, is already heavy industry. There's a polyvinyl chloride facility next door, which, if I was the resident, I'd be a lot more concerned about that than the biogas plant. So we're trying to blend in with the environment in a way that we can be a good neighbour and be a custodian, so that you don't have concerns, but at the same time be cognizant of we have our own needs, and the distillers that we work with have needs that we're trying to juggle together into a perfect puzzle. So hopefully that gives you some context.
Okay, in this 60 acres that you keep talking about, have you all had it, okay, is there any rock in that 60 acres?
We haven't completed the boring yet, but that if there is, we'll build down to rock or remove rock if we have to. Mainly, you're not going to have to go too deep here because of the water table being where it is. So I don't anticipate that being an issue, but we're doing full due diligence on the site. We'll do that.
Okay, now, let's just say there is. Okay, how are you going to get it out of there?
So just to be clear, so if you look at the ground level, so the water table follows along the creek, and to get from the water table to here is about 10 feet elevation. We would always want to be at least 10 feet above the water table. So for the vast majority of the site, we're not digging. All we're going to do on this end, top end of the site, is level, and we need to use the extra earth that we take from that leveling process to build a berm around it. Currently, we don't believe there's rock there. If there was rock there, we could take it out, so we could do a crushing operation and remove it. We ultimately need rock under the concrete anyway to provide structural support, so we would use that rock back in the concrete support.
If there's rock in there, would you blast it?
It depends on the type of rock, how it's structural it is. We'd need to get a geological engineer to tell us how we to do it.
Okay, now where I'm going with this, I'm looking down the road. Okay, let's say there's rock in there. Let's say you blast it. These people that live in this high dollar subdivision you keep talking about, and the factories around there, what are you going to do if you crack their basements?
So I just need to say we're not in a position to answer any of this because I don't know if there's rock there.
Who's going to pay for it?
But just hold on a second. We need to know what's there first before we know what we're doing. So I'm not a geological engineer, and I'm not an expert to be able to tell you that. So we don't even know if there's rock there first and foremost. What I can tell you is we will not harm the local subdivision.
Now, you know the chances, if they blast, they could crack them.
We will not do anything that will harm local people's housing or
Okay.
local business. I categorically promise you that.
I'll give you that. I'll give you that, 100%.
We need to look at what's there first. My observation from seeing the site, it seems like topsoil.
What if?
Well, if it turns out it's not viable in a safe manner, we will not build there. It's that simple.
Well, before you all do anything, the people that live within that area, you better have all them houses inspected, all the factories inspected. If you don't, somebody's going to end up in court in a lawsuit.
I know exactly what you're talking about. It's-
Okay, hold, now, that's not going to bother me. If you all get this, you do blast, I live far enough away, it's not going to affect me. So, I mean, I'm thinking about these people.
Right. Well, I think it's fair to say, number one, we don't know of any rock yet, we don't know of any issue. However, if there is, we are going to be responsible, period. There will be communication with anyone who might be affected. You're exactly right, I know all the protocols for blasting and what you need to do, and one of them is to get those photos, so that, you want those in advance in case somebody has a crack that they, point to after and it was already there before, etc. But that's a responsible company here that will do the responsible thing, if in fact that's even an issue. Every contractor who builds a house in Tullamore, for instance, who thinks about blasting has to have the same concerns.
Well, now, the reason I know what I'm talking about I used to inspect houses. I worked with
I
different.
could guess you knew what you're talking about.
I'm sorry?
I guess that you knew what you're talking about with this.
I can tell too.
Now, this is God's honest truth. I've seen them knock houses off a foundation.
That's what, just to finalise on that point, it goes back to the point I was saying at the beginning. This is not a one and done, this is an ongoing process. If we go and borehole as we go through the due diligence and we find that there's rock there, we're going to have to consult with the neighbours and figure out how we deal with that. And if it's something that I can't guarantee my shareholders that we can do safely, efficiently and responsibly, we won't build it. So today I can't tell you there's rock there, today I can't tell you how we deal with that. Today I can tell you that we will not hurt your house. And if we did, we would be on the hook for it anyway. So we're a responsible company that's brand driven, thinking for the long term. And we're not going to do ourselves any favours if we start breaking people's homes. That's not our business.
I'm John Mayer, I'm a local farmer, lifelong farmer here in Wilson County, and we're interested in your effluent coming out there, you say is nutritional value to our agronomy and raising corn. And, you know, how many, you're talking about 6 trucks an hour, 24 hours a day, roughly 140 trucks. Is that input or input and output?
Total.
Both. So it's really about half that volume.
Yeah.
So you have somewhere around 500,000 gallons a day.
Yep.
Now,
He's done his maths, well done.
okay, well, I'm just trying to, about 7,500 gallons per load is all it's said. Anyway, depressing out the solids, and you're about 60% moisture, about the moisture content of
Yep.
corn solids. Okay, and your application that's back to the soil for livestock feed, what is it?
Back soil. So it's not getting, it's got very little metabolic energy in it. It's human compounds.
You're going to be shipping this stuff 24 hours a day, weather dry, wintertime, summertime.
They'll be stored, so it won't be applied in
It will be
houses.
stored.
Yeah, it will not be applied in this.
Where is it going to be stored?
On farm.
On farm. So the farmer's got to have the storage.
Yes.
Okay, you're going to have to have storage for the 60% material and storage for the liquid? And what type of storage is this going to be? Is it lagoons or tanks or what?
That's really for the farmer to determine, but there's various technologies. You've been in the industry, so there are various technologies that are available. That's the level of detail that we would need to discuss with our partners now. But we can say that it will be stored in a manner that's both compliant with all the local laws and best practice.
It's midwinter, there's snow on the ground's froze, you can't get a truck down the road. And you've got farmers that are receiving this, and you're going to manage that.
Yep.
All to their farm. And you say you're going to sell it to them.
Yep.
And what kind of value structure or price you can put on this thing?
I don't think that's for today's meeting. That's, if it's something you wanted to discuss separately, I'm happy to, but that's not for today's meeting.
I had an earlier discussion with you, I had a great time talking to you.
We'll
And
pick up
trying to
on
find out how it worked, and I didn't get any answers, but you told me the technology of it, but you would tell me, you wouldn't tell me how it worked, you just said it would work. Okay. We don't have-
I've just clarified that for the room. So you did approach me earlier, and there was a lot of questions about how our technology works. So our AD technology is very different than anything else in the market. We don't build for others because we are trying to protect our technology. We are design, build, own and operate. And the question earlier about how can I guarantee that we're not going to sell this to someone else? If we sell it, we lose control of our tech. Now you imagine you own your Apple and you own the iPhone. You're not going to build an iPhone for someone else and give them all the components because then they've got your tech. So the worst thing to do when you're a technology developer that's got something special is to tell people about it. It's the same reason we don't have a lot of public image. So if you Google Grissan, you don't get a website because we're fiercely guarding what we've produced and what we're capable of doing because it's given us a niche area in our business.
Now, will you offer any technical advice on how to build the storage to store this stuff? And you got to get your trucks to it.
Yes, so we do that. Yeah.
You've got to have a substantial road with a semi, if someone doing it out 50,000 pounds. And weather drives heavy as now. How long is this material? If I had a big lagoon or a big tank where I could store what I just don't want to spread it on 400 acres properly. I can't do that in springtime to dry
Yep.
up. What are we going to do with that January, February, March delivery there? Is that going to keep in
Yeah.
without creating a lot of problems? What's the storability of that?
I mean, we're getting into the nuts and bolts of it, and I'm conscious that probably 95% of the room doesn't really necessarily care about it. Your questions are valid. What I will say is this is our business already. We do this, and If you want to spend a full day and we'll go right into the nuts and bolts of it, I'm happy to do so. I'm just conscious that it's, I mean,
I'm sure you'll solve those problems.
yeah.
But we'd be glad to have that effluent on our soil if it's not a problem, because we'd have the total mix of the 21 essential nutrients we need.
Yep.
We put it on chemical fertilizer, nitrogen, phosphorus, potash, and so on, but we need that sulfur, we need the zinc, we need
Yep.
other matters now that we don't buy, we have to buy those individually in fertilizer, they're very expensive, the trace
Yep.
amounts. That is in that stuff, it's good. Now,
Absolutely.
The big problem I see is the physical handling of it throughout the winter.
It ultimately goes back to capital investment. So,
But there's other farmers here that are just also,
so just there is a point there, which I think is an important point. And this is not, we're not here saying, well, that this is the farmer's problem. This is a soil conditioner fertilizer business that we built over the last 10 years. So we have an existing network and we handle these products. Again, 365 days a year, 24/7. We build heavily and invest heavily in the capital side. So you talk about storage and distribution and handling, that's equipment. So you need the right equipment, you need the right storage in the right locations and the right applications. That's a level that's probably beyond what we need to get into in this room, but we are already going through those discussions with farm partners. Then, to be honest, there's never too many. We want to work with local agriculture to get the best out of this. And ultimately, as a farmer, you look at this saying, well, how do I make my farm more regenerative and sustainable? Organic matter, nutrients, micronutrients, you touched on zinc, selenium, these important things that are often overlooked. They are in everything that's come out of the ground and into that corn kernel that's not carbon, goes back into the ground. So it's a full circle. But just like we need to do it separately, because we're going to confuse half the room and distract them.
Can you give me any estimate how many acres that you'll, I wouldn't say the maximum reach you could put on, how many acres that you would need to spread this effluent over to efficiently use it, not to overdo it, not to underdo it?
Depends on the crop, soil nutrient. We need to do analysis on it. That's not something I'd be comfortable answering today, because it depends. You know as well yourself. It depends on that farm. It depends on what the nutrient requirements that farm is. What's deficient on, what's not deficient on, what they're growing, what's the cropping cycle. So.
You're already doing this. You should be able to tell us that.
I mean, I can tell you what we do already, but that's not the same. It's a slightly different
You're
product.
in Scotland or someplace. But I'd like to have some idea how large an area it would take to.
Well, stay behind at the end and we'll have a chat. You can have as much time as you want.
As usual, the devil's in the details.
The devil is in the details, you're right.
Got a couple questions. Jim Donahue, Bardstown resident. First question, where does the 90% or so water from the tank trucks, where is it discharged or?
So it's not discharged, so that goes back out as our soil conditioner product. So that's what the last question was about, the application and handling of that. So it's not discharged.
The water stays within the soil conditioner?
Yeah.
Okay, so 100% of the water, the
100%. No discharge to sewer, no runoff, no discharge to river, no discharge to creek.
So the soil conditioner is essentially 90% water itself then?
We have two products. We have a solid product, which is about 60% water, and it's very similar to like mulch, if you have to give the consistency of it. And then the second product is about 90% water, yeah.
Okay, so no local discharge of
No.
the water? Okay. When were you first contacted about locating the digester in Nelson County?
When did we first approach you, Jeff?
Oh, when did we, I'm sorry. When did we first?
When were you first contacted about locating your digester in Bardstown?
I think the first trips that you all made would have been October when I got on and we were talking to the Nelson County about the property. And that's about the time we signed the contract.
Which would have been, what date again? I'm sorry, I missed.
I think October, I'd have to check.
October 22?
3.
23?
Yeah, 23.
Okay. All right, so
October 31st.
There you go, October 31st. October 31st of 2023.
virtually 3 months ago.
Yes.
I should clarify, we've been looking at these projects, we've been looking at these projects for years. I mean, my first trip out to the States, when we were first exporting the technology, I came out in 2019. But what we wanted to make sure is we were doing the right thing in the right industry. So we We took the time, we worked out, is it the right thing in the States? Does it fit in with the local needs? Does it fit in with the distilling industry's needs? Kentucky wasn't the only state we looked at, but it's the one that's probably most applicable. We became real on this project. We decided we were going to do it in Nelson County in October when we approached Jeff.
How many distilleries will be using your facility there?
Many?
Not this one.
Many, good answer. So that's always a bit of a chicken and an egg. So my colleague Gary, who sits beside me, who's the better looking Gary, for clarity, Gary runs all of the commercial operations in the US. Right now, we are not signing up too many because we want to establish our site. So we have a couple of deals in place that are big enough to be able to get the first project off the ground. We want to build multiple projects that have a hub and spoke type model. So what I mean by that is we want to build centralised facilities that can bring in several distilleries and take the stress off that local area and then distribute accordingly. Right now, I can say many. The wish and the demand, if you like, from the distillers is outstripping our capacity to be able to build quick enough. And that's because there is a problem with spit mash. There's a significant problem with spit mash, which I don't really see any obvious other alternative way to solve it is. But today I can't tell you exactly how many because we're not signing up everyone until we've established the right project in the right location. We're trying to do this the right way.
Okay, so it could be trucked in from as many as, say, 20 miles away?
What we want to do is have as less truck miles as possible. Keep in mind haulage is expensive. I mean, it's our single biggest expense. So that's why we go for the hub and spoke type model. This is the first of what we will have many projects around the area. So ideally no, but potentially.
Yeah, I was going to say, as far as the traffic issue, if you think about the same, the same product, byproduct is coming out of distilleries today and going to assorted farmers and other destinations. So those trucks are on the road today in various places throughout the county and beyond. This would be a much more contained, again, by design, to have the tightest loop possible, trucks in, trucks out directly, the cleanest, best looking trucks, and frankly, you'll see from the trucks they have in Scotland, they're showcase trucks, so the distillers like to have their name on the side of them. So I think this is top quality. If the question goes towards traffic or trucking, that's kind of where that goes.
But you'd probably say the majority of the trucking currently is outside of the city of Bardstown.
Well, I think Lux Row produces what they produce. It will be a very tight loop onto 245 and come right back into the property as an example with Lux Row or Tucson. So, but no, I don't know for a fact that would be more, or that those that are in the city don't go outside.
Okay. What is the, I guess, the inspiration or motivation for the current distilleries to get away from what they're currently doing in terms of?
That's a good question. I mean, ultimately, I imagine everyone in the room has seen the distillage trailers driving about and normally following the freeway, and there's normally always a trip coming out the back of them. The reality is the demands, we talk about feeding cattle, for example, that the local resources and the number of cattle that are available and the amount of spit mash that they can handle is far oversaturated. There is a real problem with spit mash in that there's far more produced locally than there is demand for. So some of it is spread to land, and that carries big risks around putrefaction of soils and various other things, and ultimately the soil doesn't want it. Its pH is so acidic, and farmers in the room can back me up, but it's not the right thing to do with it. So the reason we're here is because the distillers that we service in Scotland, who also have bourbon distilleries in the local area, are saying, when are you going to come and solve our spent mash problem? We're here partially because we want to continue to grow our business, as any successful business would do, but we're also here because our partners are saying, come on, hurry up, you've solved the problem in Scotland, it's the same thing, come and solve it here. And I don't want to talk on behalf of the distillers, but we had the same problem in Scotland 10 years ago. The reason we got into this business, the reason Grissan exists, is we were formed to solve the problem that we had in Scotch. And Scotch exploded in terms of volume, came in, I mean, Scotch, as bourbon is just now, it's on, the trajectory is up. We had that probably a little bit earlier, so we've experienced the problem that's been experienced here a little bit earlier, and that was where Grissan was formed on. So we're here now to try and help ease the burden.
So you'd say the distillery growth is outstripping their ability to handle the waste?
I mean, I can't talk about the distillers, but I know that the volume now is becoming such that it's creating a burden on the local area.
Okay, thank you.
So, sorry, just to clarify, there was one other point that came along. Some distillers currently put down the sewer, which is a very important point. So some distillers currently discharge their slot straight down the sewer, and we've obviously met with a lot of the municipality wastewater treatment plants, and they are so for this because the wastewater treatment facilities, the sewer facilities, are so heavily overloaded. So spent mash, in terms of its burden on that infrastructure, is significant, and it places a massive burden on public purse. So the county want it for that very reason. It takes a huge burden off the sewer.
Locally, are they doing that?
I mean, I'm not going to get into individual distillers, but there are still some that put it down the sewer, and that's creating a problem.
My name's Dan Chesser. I live about a mile away, so I'm out of all that buffer area. But the question I have, I want to talk about the scope of the project. How does this project rate with the other facilities you currently have? Is this the largest? Is it the middle? Where is it at?
It's not the largest, it's not the smallest. It's not far off the middle, to be honest. We have projects ranging from about half the size of this, probably one of a third of the size of it, through to one that's significantly bigger. So it sits right in our standard portfolio, really. And the scale and the size of these projects is relative to A, the feedstock, B, the access to gas. We sometimes have sites that are slightly further away, so we're connecting to different gas pipelines. Every project is really individual, and you have to meet the individual needs. But this is by no means it's not a moonshot for us. This is our core business. And the first, at the start of the video, the first facility you've seen is bigger than this.
How does it compare with other facilities in the United States? It's about in the middle again.
There's others that are significantly bigger. There's others that are significantly smaller. It's, I mean, I think the largest we talked about this the other day is 3 or 4 times the size of this. So there are loads of facilities that are bigger than this.
And you may have said, and I misunderstood, I didn't hear, is this your first project in the U.S.?
It is, yeah.
It is the first project. And then stepping to another part of this, you're talking about trucks every 10 minutes.
At maximum, yes.
Yes. Are they going to be marshaled somewhere? Because I don't know how the timing would be if truck A left from one distillery and truck B left from another distillery.
Yep.
They're coming up, we're going to marshal that.
So it's a good point. So, very good point, actually. So just to clarify, we have facility to offload 6 at any one time, and the offload time takes 10 minutes. So if we're grabbing one truck every 10 minutes, and we have the capacity to offload 6 every 10 minutes, there's never going to be a scenario where a truck can't offload. If, for whatever reason, the drivers decided, I'm just going to park myself up at the side of the road and make Grissan's life very difficult, then we've also put in truck stops along the way, which is for another 6 trucks, and then another 6 trucks leaving within our site. So we've got capacity for 18 trucks to be on site at any one time and not create a problem. And then even further, to go beyond that, if there was, I don't know, the local truck drivers got lost and come onto our site just to make our life even more difficult, we then have the entirety of the road in, or separate road in, which could then provide temporary storage.
I guess the point I'm trying to figure out is if your trucks are in there and they're waiting to be unloaded, how do you control the idling? Because you're going to be doing this 24/7. There's going to be idling all night long, most likely.
Well, no, there won't, because again, the 6 offloading facilities in 10 minutes to offload, so we can offload a full hour's worth of trucks in 10 minutes. So if you imagine that if you've got every 10 minutes one truck, we've got 6 times the offloading capacity that we need deliberately to be able to handle that particular thing. Keep in mind, trucks are expensive. Drivers are very expensive, and typically quite grumpy people that don't like to be waiting. So if a truck's parked up and waiting, it's costing us money. So we're investing in capital, investing in infrastructure, far beyond what we need to make sure that those trucks come in, offload the product cleanly, efficiently, wipe the back, shut the valve, and off they go, and straight back out. And these same trucks are that our vehicles are, whether we own them or whether we manage them, it's the same thing. We're going to have a fleet, a dedicated fleet who only work for us, who will go back and forward 24 hours a day to various distilleries, and we will schedule them and manage them to make sure that they're spread out continuously. And it's all about trying to optimise, so we A, keep the cost base down, and B, make the site efficient.
Thank you.
No problem.
My name's Bob Miller. The question I have is, again, y'all done a great job of showing all the warm and fuzzies. So what is the cubic feet of gas that those biomethaners are going to hold at any given time?
Good question. So rather than telling you cubic feet, because I can't do the conversion in my head, because, well, we don't work in Imperial despite creating Imperial, don't ask. But to give it some context, in top of the gas dome holders, we have less than an hour's storage. So it's produced, and within an hour it's taken, cleaned up, and injected into pipeline. So we're not storing per se, we are constantly processing. The reason the dome's there is because, to give it some context, if I put it in the sense of human biology, when you eat a meal you feel full pretty quickly, and then later on you feel hungry. The bugs are the same, so they produce gas in a kind of cyclical manner. That gas dome makes sure that they can constantly be fed, and it buffers and controls. So that hood, if you imagine the outer, the dome stays fixed, the inner dome moves up and down. So at some points there's nothing in it, and at some points there's an hour's worth in it, and it just moves up and down all day long. So we can continually run that process. What we want, we only get paid when it goes on the pipeline. So for one of talking about my boss, he says, clean up and get it out. Mindset is got to be, if we're not processing, we're losing money. So.
All right, that's the second part of this question. And again, I know I've dealt with this a lot in my life and my line of work. I've actually been involved with a methanator system that's going to be put in U of L downtown Louisville. Okay, if you have a catastrophic failure, and you're probably not going to answer this question, but you cannot promise me that you would not have a catastrophic failure. Nobody can.
Yep.
You can have a terrorist attack. Your lightning rods may fail. It may get hit once, lightning there strikes twice, it may strike twice, and that tank that had a rod on it doesn't anymore. Usually when rods are hit, they're done. Say we have a bad storm, you have something that you may have never seen in your business, in your family business. You have a catastrophic failure. If that happens, what is the blast radius of all them tanks if they go up with the cubic feet of gas that you say are in there? I know what you're saying. You're telling me you're getting rid of it as fast as you make it. But at any given time, I know how big those tanks are. That's a lot of gas.
Yep.
So what's your blast radius? Because I'm probably going to be within a couple hundred feet of that leading front tank all day long. I want to make sure I go home to my family. The friends and family I work with want to go home to their family. So if you have a catastrophic failure, what's the blast zone?
So I'll add to that first, and I share the same sentiment. So I'm going to be here building and operating this thing for the first 6-12 months. I operate, I actually work, I don't have a plan of it, but it'd be helpful to show. The office that I work in, the technical centre that I work in, is about 60 feet from our digesters in our largest site in Ayrshire. And I work in there 5 days a week, I'd say 8 hours a day, it's probably more 16 hours a day if I'm honest. So I'm in there all day every day, so I share the same sentiment. As for the blast radius, I can't answer that right now because I don't have the calcs available to me, but that's something that we went through and we will continue to go through with the local EMT. Gut feel, miles away, absolutely miles away. And I've seen these things go, I've seen the one in Oxford, which was not ours, that was a Severn Trent plant, and that explosion was contained within 15 metres around. And that was a lightning strike. That plant didn't have lightning protection when it should have. That was bad engineering. The point about lightning rods failing, nobody knows. I mean, you can design a thing, and you obviously know your history, and you've done your work around it. We designed to get three tiers of ANSI protection. We make it the platinum standard. We don't need to, but we choose to. We've never had a lightning rod fail. We have had lightning rods hit by lightning, and they've survived. I can't categorically tell you that it won't. To be clear, in the event that that dome did get hit, and lightning hit 10 times in the same spot, which you're more likely to win the lottery 4 times than you are for that to happen, but let's say that it did. What would happen is that dome would ignite, it would burn itself out in a matter of minutes. And it would. Those tanks are steel, there's nothing flammable inside that concrete berm. And we talked about this in great detail with the EMTs earlier. The reason we build a big earth berm around it is so that you build containment. So if someone dropped a bomb on it, a terrorist attack, it's designed such that it's fully contained so that disaster zone is contained to the site. Can I categorically tell you that it would survive a nuclear war? No, I can't. I can't, no one can. There's no business. I mean, the PVC factory next door is a much bigger fire hazard, and you will have a lot bigger blast coming up in polyvinyl chloride than what you have off of this. But all I can tell you is we engineer this in such a way that I can stand in front of you and say that this is the safest, the absolute safest gas facility you're ever going to see. And compare it to a natural gas oil well type offtake, it's engineered well beyond. And I don't know if that satisfies you, but
I think there's two other things real quick, is the number one, I guess, is when you said the whole tank, remember again, the gas is only that little margin at the very top in that curve of the dome. Number
so
one.
just a key point on that, and I think it's a poor point. If the dome was open, if it was exposed to air, the bugs can't produce methane. So it's an anaerobic digester, which means in the absence of oxygen. In the presence of oxygen, they don't produce the gas. So if it was exposed, you would only have the gas in that headspace, and then it will stop. And I think that's a key point. So it's not like you've got this inferno that blazes forever. And certainly in the
That takes
oxygen.
time.
And then,
Propane tank won't blow up either. Now, it will, it has to be ruptured, and then it'll blow. So that's my whole point. You're giving all those good answers that makes everybody here feel warm and fuzzy, but that gas on top of there, it doesn't take but about a room full of gas, natural gas, to destroy a house and nothing is left.
well, here's another point real
What
quick
are
on
those
that.
million-gallon tanks?
Comparing it
With
to,
liquid.
comparing it to a propane tank, that's by the point I was gonna make, is this is heavily moist, watered down. The biomethane has a lot of carbon dioxide in it too, at that point.
Yeah.
It's not cleaned in the top of those tanks, so that is not like a comparison to propane.
The ignition energy. So biogas in the top of the dome is roughly 42, 43% CO2 and about 57, 58% methane. So the activation energy required for that to ignite is much higher. And if I put it in context, if I took a match and held it to biogas, 9 times out of 10 it will not burn. And so our flare, we have a flare in there, we have to run what's called an active pilot. So in order to get the biogas to burn, we need to have a live flame of that size inside the bottom of the flare. And even then, if you have a high velocity gas hit it, which you get in the case of an explosion, you'll put the flame out. So this is not natural gas. At the point that it's cleaned up and injected into the pipeline, it is natural gas, and it's a different story. But the volume there is tiny. You've got the volume of...
The only gas that's gonna be on that site is from the tanks underground to the main line going down 245.
Yeah, so you'll have natural gas from about here, here, that's where the connection point will be, down there. It's all underground. And even if it leaks, it's underground.
And there are service lines underground throughout
Yeah,
Bardstown.
I'm sure, but, that's good car salesman. You're gonna point me to everything good and not the bad.
Well, no, you just heard it. I mean, and I think it is worthwhile to say, that was part of the meeting this morning, that was one of, as many as we need with the local EMT and fire folks who look at this and ask exactly these questions in detail as to, okay, what about terrorist attack? What about this one? And which is exactly what we want. And the answers, as you've heard here, are, it's been done, we've tried everything, and what we want to hear, if there are other ideas, if there are better things they can do, this is what we're going to do. And we really learn more from meetings like this, for technology issues like this, than you do from us sometimes. So if there is a nugget out there, if there's a way we can improve for this location, you got the expert. You got a doctor in little microbes that make methane right here, so he's the man.
Appreciate you, thank you.
Just to be clear, don't use doctor because it sounds pretentious. So don't listen to him.
He makes his mother call him doctor. so-
Definitely don't.
Al Thrasher again, as a follow-up to that gentleman's question. So you brought up Polyair. Polyair has isobutane tanks. Their blast radius is estimated to be at least a quarter mile. So are we not putting could there not be a chain reaction here? Because are you proposing from your infrastructure that building it next to something that has so much isobutane that we know what the blast radius is on that, and you even acknowledge it. Are you aware that it's outside corporate limits of Bardstown? So the first responder would be Nelson County. That's a volunteer fire department. When you spoke to them, did you talk about the blast radius from Polyair? And what did they say?
They said that they were significantly less concerned about us than they were about volume. And they said actually, well, and I don't want to talk on behalf of the county, but they said, I don't know why everyone's so worried about this when they've got Polyair there. It goes back to the point of, ultimately we need gas. Your houses have gas, the pipeline has gas, the distillery has gas. This gas is already being used.
I agree. I don't think it's the brightest idea, maybe putting it next to already usually flammable
But
facility.
keep in mind, it's not next to, so what you're not taking into context is you have significant screening and a significant earth wall. So this, if I call it an earth bund, and apologies, that's the Scotsman in me, it's essentially a wall of solid dirt that goes around it. And then there's a concrete wall inside of that.
How far is Polyair from the proposed infrastructure?
I need to double check.
More than 1,000 feet,
Yeah.
for sure. Yeah, it's across the 11 acres and then across the front end of the park before you get to Polyair, so.
And
Well,
it's
within the
significant.
blast radius. I acknowledge we already have an existing issue with Polyair.
So just sorry to cut across you, but it's important. Polyair is also significantly higher. So if you imagine up at this end, up the top, the elevation difference is significant. So our site, and we can go into this with looking at elevations and we can show you in detail, our site's sunk down versus Polyair. So being in the blast radius doesn't mean it's impacted by. There's physical elevations to take into consideration as well. So it's a little bit more complex than just saying how close it is. And we'll look through that. We'll go through that in great detail with the EMT. And again, to go back to the point at the beginning, if my shareholders have concerns that Polyair could potentially blow up and damage our site, that's a concern that we have to take on board. We're going to invest tens of millions of dollars in this. And we're not going to do it if we believe someone's going to hurt. Because in fact, our number one motto, and you might have seen the logo, is work safe, home safe. We value our employees. We're going to have 30 people on the site. People that I probably brought into the business. I'm trained. They'll spend some time in Scotland. I'll spend 12 months here. I'm going to be here. I'm going to bring my family across for a period of time when we build this thing. I don't want to put my family in harm's way. I want to go home at night. I don't want anyone to get hurt. So they're very valid concerns. I'm not dismissing them. I'm just flagging that it's a little bit more complex than what I can throw at you today. We'll take it on board, we'll take it away, we'll properly assess it, we'll work with the local authorities and we'll come up with a solution that either works or it won't. And if it won't, then that's a problem that we need to address.
Thank you.
I do want to put this again on the record because with the state, this is proposed, to be really clear. This is a proposed facility, and as you just heard, things have to be right for this to happen. And we want to make sure. We think this is the right site for a lot of reasons, but we're learning from you. We're learning, we had the meetings today and other meetings we'll have, helps us get to that point. We're still in the due diligence phase, making our decision about this site. Starman?
Finessed again. I think your concept is admirable. The issue that I want to ask about is, you're talking about a road where two pickup trucks cannot make a left and a right-hand turn at the same time. And you're talking about putting 6 trucks an hour, 144 trucks within 24 hours at the max. They're going to be coming in and out of a road that is used. You're going to have the biggest church in Nelson County across the street from the traffic light on 245. You have a liquor store, a strip mall. You have Woodlawn Road that is an accident waiting to happen, and you have a 2-lane road that cannot accommodate, because I live over there. If the truck is coming out with a pallet truck to go left or right, I have to stop because he cannot turn in 1 lane. So what are you doing about the traffic that you're going to generate in a neighborhood that can't handle the traffic we have now? Are you going to build the road bigger? Are you going to take land by eminent domain to make it available for your trucks to go in and out? Because they aren't going to be small. That's for sure. It's not efficient.
No.
Yeah, I think it's a good point. I was just going to say, the entrance, as we said, you're looking at Spencer Mattingly. We're going to use the least amount possible of Spencer Mattingly, period. So,
yes, but you're going to come in and out on 245
right.
at a traffic light.
You're right.
So you're already creating congestion. So what are you going to do on Sunday when there's 500 people coming out of Southeast Christian? You're creating a traffic problem because you're putting this in a congested area to accommodate your profit margin and the distillery's profit margin.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line on traffic, and the road is not big enough to accommodate that. And 245 is only 3 lane.
Your traffic authorities have looked at that, and at the volumes that we're talking about, at the steady flow that we're talking about, it really isn't that much of an impact. It displaces some other traffic that would otherwise be.
What about the noise to other people that live right next to it?
To,
Those little houses, the
um,
little guys across the street that have trucks going by their house.
right.
All
Well,
the
again,
time.
we won't be on Spencer Mattingly.
You're coming in onto Spencer Mattingly, because that's what the damn thing is.
Yeah, but we won't be crossing any houses. We won't be near any houses. We go right in and out.
Yeah, just
Spencer
to
Mattingly.
clarify.
Okay, so you're telling me that all those houses that go, all those trucks that go by there are not gonna make any noise?
Of course trucks make noise, they do.
Okay.
But however, just to clarify, so we have already committed to building trucks that run on RNG. And on average, RNG trucks are 40 decibels quieter than a gasoline or a diesel truck.
I would
So
agree
in
with that.
terms of noise, we are making an effort deliberately to work on air quality, to work on noise. And to put in context, RNG trucks are what, decibels? 50, 52? 52 decibels, I think. Don't quote me on that, but circa 50 decibels in an RNG truck engine. That's less than the...
24 hours a day.
I know, but hold on, the level of noise is less than the noise that you're currently hearing from me speaking. A normal
I don't
conversation
hear
is
any
60.
noise from Spencer Mattingly, because I don't have, Lee Brick doesn't put out hardly any trucks, okay? There's no steady noise with trucking right now from Spencer Mattingly.
But keep in
Okay,
mind,
and I can hear it because I live right in front of the substation
I
from
understand.
LG&E. Okay, so I can hear it because there's no buffer between those houses on Spencer Mattingly and my house, except for 6 pine trees. And, okay, that's okay. I don't hear any noise from Spencer Mattingly. You can't tell me that all that traffic is not going to impact the environment and the living conditions around this plant. And what are you going to do when there's 50 million kids coming in and out of Dean Watts Park that are coming from 245? We just had a 16-year-old girl get killed on Woodland Road on Sunday afternoon.
I saw that, that's
It
terrible.
won't be on Woodland. That's one reason we're not going that direction.
You're
Can
you're
I just-
going to tell, and I'm going to stop, so you're going to tell me that you're never going to have one of your trucks go the other way, because they
Categorically,
can't
yes.
get out on
Absolutely.
245.
Categorically, yes, and I'm happy to have it as a condition in the permit. Under no circumstances will I have a truck with
So
that.
you're going to change the traffic pattern on Spencer Mattingly, which is, yeah, because if you can't if you come out of your road and you can't go left or right, you can only go one way. You're changing the traffic pattern on Spencer Mattingly from 245.
So just, that's a good point, we'll go through that in good details. So coming into the site, the truck will come up the 245, take a right turn onto Spencer
Right
Mattingly, into the site, up
Come
through the
back.
site, through the loading area, excuse me, sorry, got by, through the loading area, round the turning area, and here, back down and back out, and off Spencer Mattingly, and back on 245. Every time, and that will be the
Okay,
only
so
route that they will take.
How would they, what direction do they, when they come off of Spencer Mattingly down there, they're gonna go
They're
left?
turning right off Spencer Mattingly into our site.
So you're entering the site by turning right.
Yes,
So when you exit the site,
Turning
you're gonna turn left.
yes.
So you're changing the traffic pattern on Spencer Mattingly for the people that use it as a byway. Yeah, you got it, some way, somehow.
We're not changing the traffic pattern, it's just the vehicles that come in are going to be coming in, round, looking down, and then when they go back out here. So the only part of Spencer Mattingly we're using is, wherever that is, 100 foot,
We're
yeah,
down by
100
the
feet,
bottom.
150
It's
feet.
down by the bottom. So I'm coming out from the other end of Spencer Mattingly. Your trucks are coming in front of me to go to 245. Because The street that comes out of my development goes on to Spencer Mattingly, it can go onto 245.
Yep.
And there's 150 houses that do that every day to get to Walmart, which is very close.
Yep.
Okay, so you are affecting the traffic pattern on Spencer Mattingly just from your trucks coming off and onto 245.
Of course we are. So we're going to have a truck every 10 minutes on the road. That's an undeniable fact, and I'm not going to stand here and lie to you and say that. However, I would like to clarify that before we got into this, we did contact the transport authorities, and at the time, and I'm assuming I'm okay to say this, the transport authorities deemed that the level of traffic that was involved in that was not significant enough to even need a study. I mean, to put it in context, if you stand on the
You're telling
245...
me that
So hold on.
there is no traffic study that's
Hold
going
on,
to be
please, can I
done?
please finish? Things.
Okay.
So if you stand on 245, and I did it, so before we got to that, I didn't attempt 245 and I watched the vehicles. There is not a huge amount of traffic on that. There's enough traffic to keep it constantly busy, but it's not a busy or congested road. There are periods, and I will give you credit for that, there are periods where it is congested. But generally speaking, that is a good, solid road infrastructure. We picked this site because the road infrastructure is very good for what we're trying to do. That, by the way, just put in context, that road, that's a seven-figure sum. Or a six-figure
I'm
sum, as
sure.
well. That commitment, we don't need to do that, we want to do that, because we want to not impact the road. If we could put a connection on 245 and someone would give me, I would do it, but, well, we'll still be talking here in 2079 if I'm waiting for the county to let me do
You
that.
have no way to
It'll never
build a
happen.
bypass over
And
there.
I think that goes back to that core, we want to do the right thing. If there's something we could then, maybe we do a one-way system, I suppose we're open to consultation, maybe we go in at that point and come out at this point. We're open to ideas. The core message has to be, we're trying to be good stewards. And I know I'm boring the tears of everyone in the room saying that, but this is not me standing here saying we are going to do this. This is me saying we wish to do this, we wish to do it right, and we wish to do it with you. If you've got better ideas, I'm open to it. I really am, and I hope you
If I was
believe me.
smart enough, I'd come up with one, but I'm not.
You and me both.
I'm not.
You and me both. So
Thank you.
I understand your concerns, and we want to work with you. I suppose one final point of noise, a quick more point. All the way along here, we will build an earth berm and plant trees. And trees are brilliant at what's called attenuation. If you're familiar with noise, it creates attenuation noise. So behind the trees, it just ricochets the noise back towards the site. And that's again about trying to make sure that the houses on the other side of the road don't hear it. And again, we're very familiar with that. The one thing I'm good at is an engineer that can build these things. So that bit I can say we will address. The traffic bit, that's up to really the county to give us the best advice. Thank you.
My name is Rachel Miller. You know, in Kentucky, we were really behind the curve on working on renewable energy, obviously. So I'm kind of for the project. However, you know, it's going to be very lucrative, right? This is why you're looking to do this and why you're looking to do it here. And is there an estimated tax benefit to the community annually or over 10 years?
I'm just a chemist.
I'll just say I'm not going to do the math right now, but yes, obviously this is a substantial investment by this company, and there will be taxes on, you know, at various levels, including the employment. We haven't mentioned, you know, what, total 30?
Roughly 30
30
really
people.
well-paid, high-skilled jobs.
These are jobs, you know, that the community will appreciate, and, you know, they're experts in what they do. So, yeah, I think there'll be a positive impact.
That's right.
And just to point on that, quick before point. So we talked about 30 jobs. So a natural concern is, am I going to bring across 30 people from Scotland and steal what we call it jobs? So in the first instance, me and a few of my team and a couple of our engineering team will come over and build and work with local contractors to get this project established and set up. We'll then spend a period of what we call commissioning. Apologies for the engineering term. We'll go through a commissioning period of about 6 to 12 months where we train and develop and bring the plant to full capacity, and we train a local team. We will be hiring a full team of circa 30 people who will work here full time in good quality jobs. As a company, we're good stewards. I mean, we give healthcare, we have, we go beyond, we pay significantly more than you need to at market rate. And always back to the point, we want to focus on being here for the long term. We want to have staff that are part of your local community. We want to hire people that are going to be here for 100 years. When you build in a rural area, and you guys might not call this rural, but by all accounts and purposes, most of Kentucky is very rural. The one thing that's quite hard to do is find good quality, well-trained people. So we invest very heavily. We take apprenticeship programs very seriously, and we're planning to be launching an apprenticeship program here to try and develop that next generation. I say that as someone who's the principal technical officer of the business. The hardest job I have is finding people to follow in the footsteps. So I have a team of circa 20, 25 people already. Over 50% of them, probably more, maybe 75% of them are people that we brought in from the absolute grassroots who are just qualified and we've trained them. It's hard, I tell you, it's hard bringing the next generation on. But we invest heavily in it because you end up with people that are very loyal, hardworking, and live and breathe the family. So I'm not part of the family, I'm not one of the shareholders. I've been in the company since the day it began. And I believe in it. I'm standing in front of you, not because I'm getting paid to do it, because I believe in what we're doing. And I'm in the company because I believe in the vision that we set out to do. I believe in why it's good for the community, and I believe we can do the right thing both by you guys and by ourselves financially in terms of return on investment and by the distillers in solving the problem. People often say, well, what's the downside, who loses? And I honestly think in this case nobody loses because we're being far more efficient in what we do with ultimately a product that's a problem. You turn a problem into a resource. And maybe I'm biased, of course I'm biased, but I think it's brilliant.
Thanks.
No problem.
Hi, Deborah Bogacheski. I live out in Bloomfield, and believe it or not, I'm actually a farmer too. So a couple of questions about the waste product.
So just to clarify, we don't take in or produce waste. So
Okay.
it's not waste product. It's
The
an important
soil
distinction.
conditioner, should I
Soil
call it
conditioner,
that?
much
All
better.
right, the soil conditioner.
We just delivered it on a Deansville Road, I think. Go ahead.
So every winter, we usually have at least one or two weather events where we get a few inches of snow and basically everything shuts right down. So what happens then? If the trucks can't get to you and your trucks can't leave, what happens?
So there's two sides to that. So we build sufficient storage on the site. So to clarify, we have storage tanks in the site already. We also, within the digesters, so Jeff talked earlier about it's about 90% full. The reason it's not 100% full is we give ourselves some capacity. And for any of the distillers in the room, they ask the question of how do you make sure that I'm going to keep going? We build sufficient haulage and capacity in there so that if stuff can't leave the site, we can continue the process, first of all.
So how many days?
Depends on the production cycle, but we're always looking at having more than enough. I mean, if you look at the worst weather window where the roads are shut, it's probably 2 weeks at the absolute max.
Oh, it wouldn't be that much.
And it wouldn't be that much, so we would always make sure that we could special capacity. Just to be clarifying, that's an important point, we contract guarantee to date from the distillers. We take on 100% liability for what they produce, and that's in all of our contracts and all 11 of our facilities. And that is great from the perspective of the distiller, it gives them peace of mind, but actually it shows you their credibility and their technology. So we're happy to be on the hook for, I don't need to tell you how much these distillers make, so that's a big liability. A whole lot more than we make, I can tell you that for sure. And we do that because our technology is robust and we build sufficient capacity both on the front end and the back end to make sure we continue to operate.
Okay, great.
I think one other quick answer is when there's a weather condition that there's no travel, that also means that we don't have incoming flow.
Right.
So it's not like we build up a volume, it's just, the trucks are going to get there. If they can get in, they'll get out, and vice versa.
Okay. So then, as far as the soil conditioner, getting it, the farmer has to supply his own truck, or kind of fill me in on that whole synopsis. And it looked like it was special equipment to spread it on the fields.
So there's various models, and without getting too much into a commercial discussion, and I'm happy to sit down and update it. We across the network of sites we have several different operations in it. And there's some sites where a single farmer takes everything and they contract it. There's some sites where it's a range of farmers and local land bank, and there's various different ways we can, pardon the phrase, but skin that cat. Commercially, that becomes a question about what the best thing to do in the economic value in the local area. Yes, there is a capital investment in there. That capital investment is significant. What we are working with local agriculture, and we would happily engage with you about, is that the farmer on a net basis, when you take all of that into account, is still better off. So we are coming here today to say that if you're buying a bag of NPK and you're fertilising your land and you switch onto the soil conditioner, you'll end up better off. And well, no one does anything for free. I love my job, but I wouldn't be here if I wasn't getting paid. And I don't think anyone would do their work if they weren't getting paid. So you need enough to get by. And we're cognizant of the fact that if we want to work with local agriculture, there has to be a deal. But that's not necessarily for this forum.
So what happens from, say, April through September when there's crops on those fields and they can't spread the soil conditioner? What do you do with the
So we
product then?
employ storage. Well, it's a mixture, because there is, pasture land, for example, there is sometimes demand for extra cuts and silage cropping season, depending on weather. But that's a separate piece. We employ storage. So we want, ultimately, we value our soil conditioner, and the farmer values the soil conditioner off the basis of what it's displacing in terms of nutrient input requirements. So if you're buying fertilizer and if you're having to buy fertilizer at the same time as getting the soil conditioner, it's not doing you any good. That soil conditioner is displacing your fertilizer demand, saving you money. Doing so, that then frees up some of that capital, some of that saving to be able to justify the purchase cost and the application cost. It's a bit of a separate commercial discussion, which I don't really want to get into in a public forum.
Sure.
But that all comes down to cost, capital, timescale, and for our typical business models, we've already got established models that work there, and we're in discussion with a few partners already. I'm conscious there's a few people in the room. We're happy to have those discussions as we go forward. Slightly mindful, I don't want to have the chicken before the egg or the egg before the chicken. We need to build a site or get a site agreed and pick the right location and decide we're going to do it and get right into the detail before I start selling all my soil conditioner.
Right. So
That's
bottom line, you don't see it as a problem of getting rid of,
No, not at all.
we don't want to call it waste, but
No, this is a product.
Yeah, right.
Well, if you look at it, in the county, we've got hundreds of thousands of acres of land that currently needs nutrient. And a very intelligent gentleman over there pointed out things like micronutrients and all these other things which the county is deficient, and this is a solution to that. We don't view it as getting rid of, and it's a product, and we trademark it. We call it Vitagrow. So it's a trademark product which we trade and we sell. The farmer ends up saving a little bit in input costs, so they're better off. We market a product back to specific growers that, in a lot of cases, that links back to the distillers. So the distillers say, I want my slop to produce RNG and also fertilise my next generation of corn, and that creates the loop, and that creates an economic model for the farmers. Again, I'm sounding like a stuck record, but nobody loses.
okay, great, thank you.
I'm Phil Medley and I live in the area, but y'all done an admirable job of showing us all the positives and everything. Just one question I have is, as far as the waste, the distilleries, mash or whatever when I was young, they called it slop.
Slops is good.
Slop's a good word for it, okay. Do you pay the distilleries for the slop, or do the distilleries pay you to haul the slop away for them?
So that's a commercial discussion I don't really want to get into. That's not for this forum. That's a commercial point that I can't get into.
You can't get into.
No.
Oh, you know, that kind of tells us who we're subsidizing if we let this into our neighborhood.
I mean, that's...
Right. Well, you know, if you're paying them, they're making money off of stuff that they were having to get rid of anyway.
I need to be careful. We've got commercial arrangements with distillers which have non-disclosures. I can't get into that.
You can't answer that.
I'm legally not allowed to.
That's fine. I understand, but, and with that being said, I'm going to watch a ball game. Go Cats.
Enjoy the game. Anyone else?
I have one quick question. My name's Don Howard. I live in the area. Biodigesters, I don't propose to know much about them, but as I understand it, it's a living, breathing organism that you're actually getting the gas from the slop that comes in. Scotland, much cooler area. I don't believe you have hot, humid days and...
No, actually the climate in Scotland, so particularly the areas in Scotland that we're in, the climate is actually very similar to Kentucky. The extremes here are a little bit more extreme on average, so your coldest average day in winter is 5 degrees colder than our coldest average day, but the peak high and the peak low are very similar to what we experience. I should say, by the way, and that's an important point, outside, lost my pointer. Outside these tanks, we have thick insulation, so these tanks are body temperature. And it is a living, breathing organism. It's not one organism, it's billions of organisms. And these are organisms that are naturally present in the soil. If I stuck my finger in the soil and analysed that these are the same bugs that are already there, all we're doing is concentrating them to expedite that process. And just for clarity's sake, if I dug a big hole in the ground, put some slop in it, covered it with dirt, and came back in 15 years, the exact same thing would happen. It just takes 15 years rather than...
So you don't have to worry about this organism dying off and have to revitalize it, bring it back to life in any way?
We constantly, so every one time the microbes are constantly repopulating. So you see in the picture of our lab in the facility, so I have a microbiology team who specialise in making sure we have the right concentration of the right microbes at the right time to do the right job. And there are certain things that you need to add, like you need vitamins in your diet. The microbes need a certain range of vitamins in very small doses to do magical things. That's a very significant part of our IP and our technology that I really don't want to get into because I'll get crucified. But yes, we're always growing more to replenish the ones that are naturally dying off.
So it's not like you'll have to bring in animal waste or anything like that?
We never ever enter these tanks. Sorry, that's a lie. We do statutory inspections, so we do inspect them every 5 years. But we'll do that one every 5 years. We'll empty it, we'll check the internals and make sure everything's okay and then refill it immediately. We never at any one time have a site that doesn't have an active microbial population. So we're always retaining these bacteria. We need to feed them. This living... Sorry, someone forgive me. It's a living, breathing organism that needs to be fed, and we talk about why it's 24/7. Microbes need fed. I always talk about it, it's like, I talk about these tanks as if we've got millions of grumpy teenagers. If you feed them right, and they want 4 meals a day, and sometimes they want a cheeseburger, and sometimes they don't want cheese on the cheeseburger, but if you look after them and treat them well and respect them as a living organism, which, without tarring other projects, it's a very scientific process. It's a strict microbiological process. I have a team of 20 plus chemists, microbiologists, biochemists, chemical engineers, process engineers, to make sure we've got that broad spectrum of expertise to be able to do this correctly. People will tell you just throw some stuff in a tank and magic happens. It might, but not very efficiently.
So you've never had this die off on you?
No, never. We've never ever had it digested back.
All right. All right, thank you.
Any other questions? I just want to make sure if anything else comes up, I think I put out, in my email notice of this meeting. If you want to catch us after you have more specific questions, you want to bug these guys about the price of the Vitagrow, do that on your own time. But I want to make sure that everybody's had a chance to ask questions. We've learned a lot. We really do appreciate that. I hope you've done the same. I hope you've heard from a company and you've seen what they do. As we mentioned, we've got a public hearing coming up on the board with the Board of Adjustment. Other than that, we'll just call it a meeting, and thank you very much. I'll have a couple of drawings here on the easel if you wanted to take a look at them, since the thing's on the screen on top.
And just as a final point, I'd like to echo Jeff's statement, and I do genuinely appreciate everyone taking the time to come out and listen to us. It means a lot. Thank you.